And it's always weird talking to people about New York who have uh, never been to New York, let alone live there, right? Like people don't seem to realize just how quickly and how drastically that city changes. So
Yeah,
you
for
talk to
sure.
searchers who are like, I'm sure this sign was there, 40 years ago when the sign
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
there 40 days ago.
It's changed
And
a lot since the 80s,
yeah, I can only
for
imagine,
sure. Yeah,
especially after like Giuliani came and cleaned everything up and places that you
that's
would
right.
go now, you would never go back
That's right. Times Square was a dump.
there.
There was crime. There were prostitutes everywhere. It was a mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
It kind of kills me when people are like Times Square because of the clock being a square or whatever in the image. They're like, obviously Byron wanted you to go to Times Square. It's like in 82, I bet he didn't want you to go to Times Square at
yeah,
all. But like,
you would go there if you wanted to get shot or something.
yeah. I don't know. I think people have such short memories. Like even people my age, we knew back in the 80s, like New York's not a place, that you just want to wander around, especially at night.
Yeah,
So
much better now though. So I'm
yeah,
definitely grateful for that.
it's way like I felt way safer there at night walking around like Brooklyn, especially Manhattan, than I did Chicago or San Francisco. Way safer than San Francisco or New Orleans. Oh my god.
Yeah.
So yeah, that city has changed. So, but how long? You said you grew up in New York.
Yeah. So I was born in Japan, but we moved here when I was 4.
Hmm.
So been here ever since. I'm a finance guy. So I've worked for a couple of the big investment banks over the years.
All
But
right.
finance, good analytical mind. So it's kind of a fit for these treasure hunts.
Do you speak Japanese or do you read Japanese?
No,
No.
I studied it a bit when I was younger, but
I'm
you know,
still
you know, it's
like I'm
it's really
searching.
hard to get that to stick unless you're
Yeah.
like using it every day.
I'm still searching for somebody that can read that Japanese copy of the book and at least find out if the translations are accurate. Because every time somebody translates something, it's wildly different than
Yeah,
what's
yeah, yeah.
translated before.
Well, my mom reads and speaks, so I did actually show her some of the Japanese translations, and with the English that's there, it was pretty spot on. I didn't see any issues.
Cool. Cool. All right. So let's talk about Central Park.
All right, let's dive in. I'm going to share my screen here.
Sure.
All right, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So let's get to this. This is definitely the elephant in the room. My experience with this so far is that this is probably the most unpopular subject that's out there in all of the ongoing secret searches in the different cities.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I'll just preface my comments before I get into it that when I started looking at the New York clues, I was really looking at all the parks, all
Mhm.
the major parks. Looked at Central Park, Prospect Park, Battery Park, looked in Staten Island. So I really kind of came at it objectively. I didn't have any preconceived notions about where it may or may not be.
Mhm.
My strategy was basically to, look at the different parks and try to pick up the trail of clues, and just do that objectively without any of what Byron said or didn't say, letting that affect my process. Um, so that's kind of number one. And I guess the second thing is, why put all these different quotes together? Whoops. Um, is really that his comment on Central Park. I don't think you can just look at that in a vacuum. I think I think the right way to do it is, let's put Byron on trial here. Let's look at all the quotes that I can find, that things that he said to seekers over the years. Um, and I really bucket this as one of three things. He's, if you ask him a question, he's either going to say yes, he's going to say no, or he's going to say maybe. So, is he a yes, no, or maybe kind of guy? I think if you look at some of the answers here, a lot of them are maybes. He's the St. Louis one here, the one at Houston. It might not be a waste of time to dig there. So I guess the point is, let's not try to analyze each and every one of these.
Well,
beat it to death,
I mean, I think it's pretty good to analyze each and every one of those because you're kind of generalizing a little bit.
A little bit, sure.
There's a couple of those that I don't know where they came from. As for St. Louis, I think it's a great place. Where did that come from?
I mean, I just found these things. They're out there on the internet.
Yeah, but like, are they stuff that searchers say Byron said, or can you find somewhere where he said it?
Yeah, no, I think I can attribute all of these. I feel pretty good about that.
Because I've never heard him saying anything about the Twin Towers at all.
Okay.
And let's see there's no treasure on Liberty Island. I've never heard him say that either. I think you deserve to know you're correct about St. Louis, but not correct about the location, but wrong about the location was what he said, I think. But yeah, that's pretty close. There's no treasure in Central Park. That was pretty direct. Like, so the thing about Houston was that was part of an ongoing conversation, right? It's a snippet of an ongoing conversation that he was having with Wheelhouse, which the ongoing conversation had nothing to do with The Secret at all. They were talking about comic books and stuff. Like they were, okay. Wheelhouse and Byron were legitimately friends. Byron had in the early 2000s, Byron was getting an influx of emails from Quest for Treasures. Just a lot of people were messaging him. He was getting tired of it. And he shut down messages. He wasn't going to take any more questions about The Secret, but Wheelhouse emailed him and was like, hey man, we've had really good conversations about comic books and about interests and yada, yada, yada. And he was like, I promise you, I won't talk about The Secret, but I would love to keep this going. And they kind of agreed and they kept their conversation going. And that was a couple of years from what I understand until Wheelhouse was finally like, look, they're tearing apart this park. And and they've given me permission to go in and dig. And I need to know if he's like, here's my spot. Is it going to basically, I don't remember the exact words. Is it basically going to be a waste of time to dig there? And Byron was like, I don't know. I got to check the photos, but it would not be a waste of time to dig there. It was something like that. So it was important to remember that was part of an ongoing conversation. The St. Louis email was also, I mean, it wasn't just like a one-off email thing from what I understand. Johan had emailed him before. But I
don't think we have the context for the St. Louis one though.
Yeah, we don't have the context at all for the St. Louis one. But from what I do know that Johan had, like, they were in contact. But the Central Park one was just like very direct. There's no casque and there's no treasure in Central Park.
No treasure, not no casque. So
yeah, we
could
treasure.
Debate that treasure versus casque versus other things.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I think people get bogged down into thinking that everything that Byron, and especially now, everything that John says is like this super huge mystery where they're just trying to be vague when they're not. They're being very direct with people. It's the people who are interpreting their messages are being indirect with the interpretation, right? Like there's no treasure in Central Park. It's pretty direct. And there's a lot of really good stuff for Central Park, and searchers like, prior to this email being sent, we're pretty dead set on Central Park. Like if you're going to bury something in New York, it's probably going to be in Central Park, because it's the biggest, most famous park in America, really.
Sure.
So that was a pretty direct thing. There is one quote that helps your theory that you left out though, which I'll give you.
I'm curious to know. Yeah.
When the Chicago guys were looking for the Chicago treasure, they called Byron's office. And a lady answered, which we always kind of assume was Byron's mother, because I think Byron's mother was his secretary at the time. Byron was sharing an office with his father, like his father's law firm or whatever. It doesn't matter anyway. The Chicago guys were like, hey, we think we found the treasure in Chicago. And Byron's mom's like, there's no treasure in Chicago. So there you go. There's something that helps. There absolutely was a treasure in Chicago, but it was, it was Byron's mom that said it, arguably. And then like we asked Rob about it and Rob couldn't remember that phone call, but it's like, it might've happened. So who knows? But that helps your your case.
Maybe he told her if anybody calls and they ask about buried treasures, just say it's not there.
That's possible. That's very possible. But
Yep.
like I said, that was back in 1982, and the message you're talking about, there's no treasure in Central Park, was what, 2003 or 2000?
Yeah,
something.
early 2000s.
Yeah. So anyway, continue.
But you know,
Sorry.
it was you know, an answer to an email to one person. You know, wasn't blasted out to 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Or put on his Twitter page or whatever.
Yeah.
It was just one person. So we don't have the context for that. Maybe the guy was highly annoying or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm happy to move on from these.
It's your show, bro.
You are? Okay. Yeah. All right. I guess just real quick before moving on, you know, I'm curious. You know, I found it very, very difficult to bring forward a solve,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with the way the community is sort of organized.
Right.
Obviously, there's a lot of noise out there. You know, I think people get very emotionally attached to their theories. I guess how do you think about it? What's the best way to navigate through all of the stuff out there?
Well,
if you have a really good idea.
Nobody, like, everybody thinks they're an expert, right? But nobody knows. It's just whose opinion is, like, who can argue better, basically, right? Like, the people who are on top don't know any more than you do. I mean, they might know more factual stuff about the puzzle. They might have more of like a spider web of information in their head, but they don't know the answers any more than you do. They can just argue better. So I like to keep that in mind. Like, and I also like to keep in mind that some people who don't post often, no matter if they're posting their theory or they're arguing against someone else's theory, people who don't post very often aren't well, they don't have a lot of practice in communicating online, right?
Uh-huh.
So they sometimes they say things that are interpreted incorrectly, or, you know, they're a keyboard warrior or whatever. So I like, my thing is, when you post something, just focus on, when you post something, you want to have a conversation about your ideas. Out of all the comments that come in, just focus on the ones that are that pertain to what you want to talk about, right? Because people are gonna do, like, the biggest problem back in the day, back when the Facebook group first started, was people who would come in to try to derail, just completely derail conversations, in order to prevent you from looking into what you were, like, say you were looking into something they were looking into, they would just come in and try to completely derail your conversation. I see that happening a lot more, and it's important to not get caught in that trap. But that's kind of my advice for people. Just focus on the information that you want to discuss and kind of ignore everybody else, and just know, you know, deep down, they don't know any better than you do. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know if that answers your question. That was like a long-winded answer.
No, that helps. That helps. All right. So let's get into this a bit.
Okay.
Occam's razor. Do you know what it is?
Yes.
Okay, good. Right. When faced with two equally good hypotheses, always choose the simpler one.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a really good thing to live by when you're a puzzle solver.
Right. I know you've probably seen some of these with people's different theories about the secret.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like this, right?
Yeah. It kind of does.
Yeah. So, you know, let me set this up. So, I mean, you know, what I'm hoping to do here is really give you very strong, maybe irrefutable evidence that the casque is in Central Park. So I'm going to bring forward a brand new solution, probably one you've never heard or seen before. It is simple. It's logical. You know, to summarize, for New York City, to solve it, you have to solve 8 consecutive clues. And I don't think anybody's put those together in a way that makes sense. And then, so, you know, I'm going to apply Occam's razor to my theory. And it goes as follows. That basically the clues, the written clues, and the picture point to Central Park. So therefore, the casque is in Central Park. So we just going to keep it nice and simple and straightforward.
Okay.
Right? Everything points to Central Park. So that's where it is. You know, and by the way, let me throw in one other thing. You know, in addition to Occam's razor, you could use deductive reasoning as well. And that would go as follows, that the clues lead to the casque. The clues are in Central Park. So therefore the casque is in Central Park. So you can use a couple different, you know, ways to reason this out. One other last thing I'll throw in there too is probability theory. And so the probability theory would be basically each assumption that you make for whatever your theory is, every time you make an assumption, it increases the probability that you're wrong. So if you have a theory that has one assumption versus a theory that has three assumptions, you know, or a theory with zero assumptions, you know, the theory with the fewest assumptions has a better statistical chance of being correct. So I'll just throw that out there. All right, so let me give a quick overview. The map of Central Park. Remember, I said there you have to solve eight clues to solve the whole puzzle here.
Yeah.
We're going to start up on the Upper East Side at 97th Street. We're going to work our way down the park along the east side, and then we're going to end up here at the bottom at Bethesda Fountain and the mall. So it traces a nice clear line through the park that makes sense. You know, you're not zigzagging all over the place. You know, just two other quick things I'll mention before I go on. You know, number one, structurally, it's a scavenger hunt, and the clues are organized that way. So you're basically going from point A to point B to point C to X marks the spot. I know a lot of people like to weave in the thematic elements, you know, story of immigration, or you need to see the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island from your dig site, things like that. That's not the case here. You're simply linking statues to Byron's verses, and then moving on from there.
Can I say one thing that's completely not related to this, because I was reading the comments and I saw I was reading the comments, and then I went and I looked at who's viewing, and I saw a name. And I just want to say that there is a person watching this video that recently, very, very, very recently, won their own treasure hunt for like a really decent amount of money. And
Okay.
like it's so like people constantly are like these like the people in the Facebook groups are bad at treasure hunts, but I keep seeing people actually win them, and like I'm so happy for that person, and like I hope that they come out and they're like, look, we solved this, because I think the community will be happy too. But I just wanted to say congratulations to that person again.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
terrific.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, whoever you are, congrats, and you know, maybe we can connect after this. So that would be great. All right, so again,
sorry
one.
for interrupting.
Yeah, no problem. So number one, this is a scavenger hunt. Number two, it's also a jigsaw puzzle. So all the pieces of your solve have to fit together logically, or it's not solved.
Okay.
So you know, my belief is that the casque is there. It's the spot that it's in has been untouched and undisturbed for 40 years. So it's still there where Byron put it. You know, I think it could be one of the last casques that people can still get at this point, given what's happened to some of the other parks. Okay, so biggest thing first is this. So Palancar said people were missing something big. In my view, this is what it is. Whoops.
Well, he said they were missing something as exact as the wall in Cleveland.
Say that again?
He said that what they were missing was as exact as the wall in Cleveland. It was an exact match. But he can't believe that they're missing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
this is what I think it is. So this is the Angel of the Waters,
Hmm.
and in Central Park. So my belief is that Palancar's painting is a representation of the angel. And once
Okay.
you make this connection, it unlocks the whole puzzle. All right. So in my mind, this is like a flashy neon sign that says Central Park. Is what is the number one most recognizable element in the painting. And people that know Central Park and people that have been here will recognize that this is the most famous landmark in the whole park, without doubt. So again, we can go back to Occam's razor. Let's just apply that for a second. So Occam's razor would say the angel is a symbol of Central Park. So therefore, the correct park and picture matching is Central Park. So again, let's keep it nice and simple. This, I think, is the number one thing that people are missing with the New York image. By the way, I also believe that all the paintings, I don't know if you share this belief, but I think all the paintings, if you interpret them properly, it will tell you both the city and which park people should be focused on. And I think you only need the painting to identify the park.
I don't know that I would agree with that, but
that's just what I think. But
I mean, like when John was talking about Boston, he said he knew it was on a ball field, but he didn't know which one. He was leaning more towards Fenway, and he wondered how Byron could get into Fenway to dig a hole. Now, I don't know how he could
right,
not know exactly what park it was if his painting was supposed to lead you to exactly that park. And I mean, I really can't see how you would get to Grant Park from the Chicago painting either. But okay, let's go.
yeah,
That's fine.
all right.
We'll go
I
with
don't
it.
think it's the same formula for all of them. I think slightly different things are happening in different cities, um, but definitely for New York, this is
Okay.
these are both the Angel of the Waters. I think it's as clear as can be. You're floating over water. Number one. Number two, you're wearing robes. Number three, you carry a flower. Both of these have a flower. Um, the one on the left, obviously no wings, but you do have the bird in the picture, so there is a wings element in the picture if you're really stretching for some wings. All right.
Okay.
Um, okay. So let's go into some of the other imagery here. So these are all landmarks that I think point to Central Park. Obviously not the Statue of Liberty, but the weird rectangle thing. That's the Temple of Dendur. It's inside the Metropolitan Museum, which is on the east side of Central Park. Then you have Saint Nicholas Orthodox Church. That's at 97th Street and Central Park East. These things basically guide you to your starting point, where you're supposed to go into the park. You also have this Roman numeral clock. It's at the Southgate House, on the south end of the reservoir in Central Park. I guess the Roman numeral is not a direct match, but pretty close, I think. All right, so we'll start here. So what I'm going to do is just walk through each of the verses,
Okay.
and kind of what the solve is for each one. If you have any questions or pushback, feel free to hit me with it. All right, so Gray Giant. My view on this is it's not a bridge, it's not a building, it's not a statue. I did some research around this. So what I come to believe is it's this tree. This is your Gray Giant. It is a 160-year-old tree in Central Park. It's one of the largest trees in the park, and it happens to be a London plane tree. London plane is significant because the way Gray is spelled by Byron is Grey. He uses the UK spelling for gray, not Gray, which would be the US spelling. So the London plane and the spelling of Gray gives you a clue that that you're on the right track here with this tree. The tree sits next to the bridle path. So if you know Central Park, the bridle path is where people used to ride horses. And it's definitely one of the most famous trees in the park. It's also at 96th Street and Bridle Path. So remember, I mentioned some of those other landmarks basically bring you into the park at 97th Street, and then you walk one block down at 96th Street and you run into this big, huge tree that has branches extending over the Bridle Path. I think a lot of the people out there are focused on other gray giants, and therefore it just gives them the wrong starting point for their theories.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yeah.
So far, so good.
I keep going.
Okay. All right. So find the arm that extends over the slender path. So slender path again is the bridle path.
Mm-hmm.
In summer, you'll often hear a whirring sound. So the whirring sound is people on bikes. If you go to the Japanese hints, it says something that needs the power of humans to run. So that's a bike. The bike path is right next to the bridle path here. So if you were able to look a little bit to the left here, which you can't, basically 20 feet to your left is going to be a bike path. And the bikes are constantly whizzing down that pathway. Also cars abound. There's a traverse through Central Park at 97th Street. So you have a lot of cars that cut through the park at that point. A couple hundred feet over to your left also is Fifth Avenue. So a lot of cars going down Fifth Avenue. I would just summarize these first three clues as really on the ground clues. Like you either know Central Park, you know these things exist, you know about the big tree here, and you know about the bike path and how the bike path is path.
Can you do me a favor? Because I don't know Central Park that well. So I just popped up Google Maps because I just kind of want to follow along with where we're going. Could you give me like a cross street near where we're at that I can look for in Google Maps?
Yeah, just look at 97 and 5th Avenue.
97.
And then kind of zoom in on that, and you'll probably, if you see a road right inside the park, that's the bike path, and then a little further in would be the bridle path.
Okay, near like the North Meadow Recreation Center, all the baseball fields. Okay, all right.
Yeah, so we're south of North Meadow at this point. We're at 96th Street and bridle path.
Okay, all right. I got you.
So we're going to keep working our way south along the east side of the park. All right, now we're working our way down to about 80, 84, 85th Street. Okay. So the next clue here, sign speaks of Indies native. I don't think there's any real controversy over who the Indies native is. I think the controversy is like which monument to this person is the relevant one. So Alexander Hamilton, right behind the Metropolitan Museum at 84th Street.
So we've walked 11 blocks.
Yeah, we've probably walked about half a mile.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think this one's pretty straightforward. This is the one that people have a lot of difficulty with. Hymn of Hard Word. So, I think a lot of the other explanations on this one that you see out there are pretty far-fetched. Really, what helped me crack this one are the Japanese hints. I remember the Japanese hints said something about you need to guess this person's name. You have to start with chicken and do wordplay from there. So if you do that, here, Anders hen. So that's your chicken wordplay. I'll
Who
yeah,
is that again?
Hans Christian Andersen.
Okay.
Right. All right. So I'll explain. So you go back up to the clue here. Hymn of hard word, three vols. So you're looking for another monument or statue in the park. What's the hard word? Well, Hans Christian Andersen is from Denmark. And this took me a little while to work out, but I don't know if you have any experience with the Danish language, but it's crazy. And I'm going to show you in 2 seconds. But aside from the Danish thing, which would explain the hard word, is the three vols. So, Hans Christian Andersen is famous for his fairy tales. He published them in 3 volumes between 1835 and 1837. So that's the reference to the three vols. And then let me go back for a second to the hard word. So what's a hard word? Hard to pronounce or hard to spell? Like this is a sampling, and don't ask me what any of these mean. Some of them are really simple things like napkin and excuse me and things like that. But this is just a sampling of Danish words. It is a crazy language. So that's what I think gives you the context for hard word. So hymn of hard word, hymn of Denmark, which is a country of hard words, and it's Hans Christian Andersen. And so his statue is south of Alexander Hamilton. It's probably another quarter-mile walk or so between Alexander and Hans Christian.
Where is the Alexander statue? You said it was the Metropolitan Museum of Art at 84th Street, and I'm looking and I can't find it. Where on 84th Street is it?
I mean, it's not on. I mean, if you're in the street level, like in the New York grid, you're in the wrong place. You have to be in Central Park.
Oh,
and you're not. This is on the backside of the museum, the Metropolitan Museum. So like look at the back corner of the museum.
Gotcha.
And then find the bike path that runs by there, and the statues.
Yeah,
the statues next to that bike path.
Okay. All right.
Like if you come across the obelisk, also known as Cleopatra's Needle, it's in that area too.
Okay. All right.
But now we're working our way down. So let's see. Let me just go back to this map for a second. So we've now gone to Hans Christian Andersen. So he's right here around 73rd Street.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's if you look on this map, you see the Metropolitan Museum up around 83rd Street.
Yeah.
And then you see the obelisk there, right? There's a star where the Metropolitan Museum is. So that's basically where the Hamilton statue is. And then you go straight south from there to about 73rd Street. And that's where the Hans Christian Andersen statue is.
I gotcha. I'm with you.
We're not on the literary walk yet.
But it's near there.
It's we're getting close.
Oh, okay. I see. Never mind. I got you.
Yep.
I'm good. We're good.
Okay.
I'm on the same.
All right. Good. All right. Hard words, Danish language. All right. This is one that nobody has an answer for that I've seen. Take twice as many east steps as the hour. So I think everyone's first thought is to walk east for a certain number of steps from wherever they are. But the east steps are actually not walking east. So the east steps are actually west of the Hans Christian Andersen statue. And it's this archway. It's called the Trefoil Arch.
Uh-huh.
And the arch runs under the East Drive. So that's why I believe Byron called them the East Steps. There are about 60 of these arches throughout Central Park. And they're designed to separate pedestrian traffic from, bike and car and horse traffic. Actually, if you pass through this archway at Trefoil Arch, you see there's steps going up on the other side. If you actually count these steps, you come up with 26 steps. So twice as many steps as the hour's 11, twice as many, 22 or more. So you have 26 steps here. Yeah?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. So if you look at my little map here, the E steps basically connect the Anderson statue to Bethesda Fountain. Once you pass through these east steps, you have a couple hundred feet, probably about 300 feet. And you just walk along that footpath and you end up right at the Angel of the Waters at Bethesda Fountain. So, if you're me, you're on the ground there, you're standing by the fountain. There are hundreds of other people around you. And you're like, okay, now what do I do? Where is this V that I'm supposed to find? You're looking down, you're looking at the pathways. You're looking for anything that connects in a V. And then I think at some point I looked at Google Maps on my phone. And you realize that if you start with the fountain, Bethesda Fountain, that as you go south from there, you notice these pathways start to widen out from the fountain as your starting point. Okay, so that gave me the idea. All right, this is the V that I'm supposed to do. And so if you make a V starting with the fountain, heading south, what's in the middle of one branch of the V? So over here you have a Beethoven statue. So I'll come back to that in a minute. But I think you have to again go back and see how all of these things fit together, I think, pretty neatly, right? So you have the Anderson statue, walk 200 feet, you have the east steps, walk 300 feet, and you're at Bethesda Fountain. These things connect nicely without having to reach or bend reality and come up with crazy theories, right? They're physically close to each other, and the verses match. And now I've made my V. I have a Beethoven statue, which is in the middle of one branch of the V. And then so the next part of this solve is, the most important part here, and we can go into what all of this means if you want to, but the most important part is rhapsodic man's soil. That's the key. And again, go back to the Japanese hints, which, as I said before, they're not optional. The hints are essential to solving any of the secret puzzles in any of the cities, I think. So in this case, the Japanese hint says rhapsodic man is a man of epics. From the word rhapsodic, think of a famous song. Then you'll know the rhapsodic man that made that song. So I think among the New York crowd, the popular rhapsodic man is George Gershwin. You've probably seen and heard that a fair amount.
Because he was Byron's favorite composer, and he composed Rhapsody in Blue. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's from Brooklyn, and there are parks in Brooklyn. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. The tough thing with Gershwin is there's no statue or monument to him anywhere in New York City. Doesn't exist. So there's nothing that links you to to get into a park where you could dig for a treasure box. You can use his house and things like that, but it's all pretty tough to make those connections. But I think Beethoven is a great rhapsodic man. and he has Symphony Number 9, which, is probably the most famous musical composition of all time, maybe. So that's my rhapsodic man. Some of the other aspects to this, the verses here, look down and see simple roots. Roots is actually a play on words. So I think Byron means roots as in ROUTES, simple roots. So if you look down, meaning look south, and see simple roots, or basically simple pathways. Look at the simple pathways through the park, and we'll come back to why that's important. So if you just give me a minute on that, and then the last part, gaze north toward the Isle of B. In my mind, the Isle of B is just Bethesda Terrace, which is directly north of your position here. And by the way, this whole thing about, you probably know the context better than me. I think on Expedition Unknown, at like the presentation ceremony or something like that, like Byron's daughter said something about being able to see some of the items from the image.
Yeah,
Like,
I think it was the first episode of Expedition Unknown, and she said you should be able to see everything in the image.
Yeah, and actually you can from here. All right, just not the things that you think. So you're not seeing the Statue of Liberty or Ellis Island. But from this location, at this Beethoven statue, you're able to see an eagle statue. You're able
to see that eagle statue, though, or just an eagle statue?
An eagle statue, not that eagle statue. Like, I would say it's not a 1-for-1 match with that image, but there is an eagle statue probably about 100 feet from this Beethoven statue. You can definitely see Bethesda Fountain and the Angel of the Waters, which is the most important thing. So I think those are the two main elements that I would
but
call
you can't
out there.
Like the main thing that you said, the main thing that you would need to get you to Central Park, the biggest thing in this image was that Central Park angel statue. Can you see that from here?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
That statue is only a few hundred feet from your spot here.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So let me show you a few more things here. So Beethoven's your dig site, and I'll show you why in 2 seconds. First of all, this is the Bethesda Fountain in the 1980s versus what it looks like today. It is a lot more popular today. Central Park is a lot more popular. I think it brings in something like 50 million visitors, which makes it really challenging to dig up a casque, because there are always people around. You can go there at 2 a.m. and there are going to be people around. This area is well lighted. There are frequent police patrols. So it is I would call it a very high risk area to probe and to dig.
It would have been a high risk area in the 80s for other reasons, though.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what this looks like. So this is your Beethoven statue. There's a tree in front of it. But look at this nicely penned in area here. This is your dig site. So when Byron says in Rhapsodic Man's soil, in basically means dig here. That's what he's telling you. And I think a couple other cities he's used similar language. When you see the word in, and it only happens in a few cities, but when you see the word in, toward the end of his verses, I think that's a direct clue to say this is where the thing is buried.
All right.
But tell me if you don't like that, George.
Well, here's
look like a dig site to you?
Here's the thing. Whenever someone comes to me and says, I want to talk about X area, it doesn't matter what area. So it's Central Park, or because people talk about, like, you're not the only one that thinks there's something buried in Central Park. People think there's something buried in Central Park. and that's fine. There's several members that are looking in Central Park, whether it's Central Park or Golden Gate Park or any of these other little parks in these cities that we're interested in. No matter where we start, we generally end up in one or two different places. And the Beethoven statue is one of the places that we always end up when we're in Central Park. Now, people get there for different reasons, that everybody gets there for a little different reasons. Yours, personally, I don't buy it at all. Like, so Byron's given us this stuff in the image that sort of is somewhere around Central Park, and that tells us to go to this one very specific spot in Central Park and find a tree. And in summer, you'll hear whirring sounds, and those are bicycles, but they're only in the summer, because in the winter, like, I don't know, New Yorkers get in their car and drive, like, but there's always bicycles. And
Sure.
like all of these things. And then it's like, and now walk a half a mile for this statue that you need to know it's there, because you're just walking a half a mile looking, like, if you don't know the statue's there, what's going to cause you to walk a half a mile? Like, nobody's going to assume that you got to walk a half a mile through Central Park. And speaking about walking a half a mile in Central Park, there was a reason earlier I brought up about how bad Times Square was. The most dangerous part of New York in the 80s was Central Park. So Byron's just like, hey, just go wander around Central Park for a while until you find this statue. And then that statue is going to lead you to this other statue for really no kind of reason, or this other place for really no reason, except you already know it's there. And then you have to follow a path that's shaped like a V, except it's not shaped like a V. And you have to go down some steps that aren't east, but we're calling them the east steps because they run under East Drive, and
Okay.
there's 26 of them, which is a number we came to arbitrarily because it's more than the number of, twice the number of the hour. Like, there's a lot of stretchiness here.
Okay.
A lot. Now, I'm not saying that to discourage you. You just asked my opinion.
Can I show you one more thing?
Yeah, sure, man. Feel free.
All right. This is like the icing on the cake.
Okay.
If you take the image of the angel and position it over this part of the park. All right. Now, what's the one thing I'll tell you, the one thing that's bothered me about the angel when I look at the image is why are her robes so crazily long?
I don't know, but
Right?
they don't match what you've lined up with.
What is going on with that? Well, I think it does. So if you look at the contours of the pathways on the left side of her robes, it's a match. You put her head at Bethesda Fountain, her arms are extended down in the V that you're supposed to make. All right? Like they're giving you that V clue that you start with the fountain and you make a V. All right? So her arms fit that. And I'll show you one last thing here, if I can get it to work. There. All right. So you can take this flower, and you notice it has a very long, straight stem to it. That's going to fit exactly into the mall and the literary walk here. And you see where the flower ends up once you position it like that. The flower is at the Beethoven statue. So you get two confirmations using the image. Number one, you use the angel herself, and her robes fit into the contours of the pathways in the park. And number two, you use the flower to identify your dig site.
Okay.
I mean, would you say that with other cities?
I would say that's kind of like, I can't even tell that matches because you can barely see the map with the two overlays that you have, but I would say that it's like that because you scaled it that way. You've got two sections of an image scaled in two different ways, something you honestly absolutely could not do in the 80s. And I'm sorry to argue with you, but that outline of a robe does not match the outline of those paths in the park. Like, not at all.
Okay.
Because like I can see, oh my God, nobody can see this. Like here, the dress keeps going straight. The road curves off. Here, the road curves in, but the dress keeps going straight. Like down here, like it just doesn't. And it's always weird to me that like if John wanted to make something match, he could make it match well enough. It doesn't have to be exact, but you know exactly what it is. Like the outline of Ohio and all of the interstates. That doesn't match. Like if you do an overlay, that doesn't match at all. But it's exact enough to where you know what it is. Nobody ever questions that. I mean, nobody questions it partly because John said that's what it was, but even before that, no one ever questioned it because he's that good of an artist. He can make something look like something else without having to do all this. Now, and pointing out another thing, like the only time John has ever been presented with an overlay, he looked at the overlay and was like, I'm not creative enough to do this. You know, and he's the kind of artist also that doesn't like to project things and doesn't like to trace. Like,
right.
That doesn't, me saying all that doesn't take anything away from your theory at all. I think this overlay absolutely takes away from your theory. You should just throw it away for a couple of reasons. Number one, it doesn't work. And number two, whenever people throw in overlays, they lose 90% of the people that are watching.
Okay.
At least 90% of like the more serious, because
That's
they
fair.
all understand. Yeah. Like you could have, this entire argument could have made without that.
Maybe I didn't execute it well enough. So
No,
I would certainly challenge other people to, follow through these steps and see if you can make the overlay work better than what I've presented here.
I mean, like like I said at the beginning of this, none of us know any better than you do. Oh, look, we have our peregrine. None of us know any better than you do, right? Like, none of us know what the answer is. So it really is up to who can argue what better. But yeah, I don't know. So where are you at now? Like you live in New York. Do you said it was patrolled by cops, so you couldn't really do anything.
Yeah. I mean, I have a job. I can't get arrested.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, this would mean a lot to me to dig something up, but I'm not getting arrested over that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it kind of leaves me in a bit of a conundrum as far as
you did have a question. Has anybody dug there? And yes, people have dug at the Beethoven statue a lot. But in the past, I don't know so much now. People don't talk about Central Park now as much as they used to like 4, 5, 6 years ago. That was a big thing. Like when Expedition Unknown first came out, the first episode, the influx of people were all like, it's in Central Park. And there was nobody that in New York that really cared enough to correct anybody. So there was a lot of work done to Central Park.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry.
That's cool. There was a lot of work done to Central Park back then, and this was dug up quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I think, to dig these days, you would need the permission of the Central Park Conservancy, and that's not going to be an easy thing.
No. Though I wonder, just like the quote from the San Francisco Parks guy or whoever it was who said, San Francisco's a big city with a lot of problems, and the last thing we care about is holes in our park. And that's why they set up sort of the lottery system and stuff. I know New Orleans is basically the same way. They're like, unless you're, interfering with their tourist stuff by digging in front of the St. Louis Cathedral or whatever,
right?
They don't generally care.
Really?
So I wonder,
they would let you dig in like Armstrong Park?
Let you? No. But generally, like, it's not as people make it out to be a huge deal just digging a hole, and it can be. It can be a huge deal if you're not a respectful person or if you're kind of a crazy loon or you're digging holes everywhere. But I think if the cops, like every time I've ever been caught digging a hole, back when I didn't get permission, the cops would come and be like, "What are you doing?" And I would be like, "Well, I'm, looking for a time capsule." And they're like, "That's stupid. Fill your hole. Don't do that anymore." Like, and I feel like New York is like, they have a lot of stuff to worry about, and they don't necessarily care about holes if you're filling them in, but that's just me. I like you said, I have a career. I don't want to jeopardize by having that interaction. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, if anybody has any good ideas on how to probe in Central Park, then
I
let's
mean,
talk.
I think this will be a good jumpstart for the Central Park. There's been a couple of people who are like, yeah, I like X and Y connections that you made. So you should go back and look at the comments. I mean, there's some who are like, no, but there's been some good feedback. So
Okay, good.
maybe it'll jumpstart that conversation for Central Park. Personally, like one of the comments said, I apply the Occam's razor to the comment Byron made that there's no treasure in Central Park. And then like his kids say, like his kids saying that you see everything from the image, like those that match to Statue of Liberty, you can't argue that. Like it's not even, it's an exact thing. It's like the fence post or like the Bowman or whatever. So I feel like anything for New York's got to have that central to it a little bit. No, I mean, I guess it could be the iconic building, like the Water Tower in Chicago, right? It could just be telling you New York.
They're just telling you that this is the New York image.
But then you got the eagle.
Well, that's also telling you New York image.
But that would be the only image with two of those things that are telling you, okay, New York. Like you got the Statue of Liberty for New York. You don't need anything else.
Right. Well, obviously some of those Central Park things you can identify as Central Park or New York.
Yeah.
The fountain itself. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's not.
I think right. The folds of her robes might say NYC. Some people have speculated on that.
Yeah. I really liked the UN. Somebody came up with UN. That's been so far my favorite, aside from Coney Island, which Coney Island will always be my favorite New York theory. But aside from that is the UN in the robe with the UN building right across from the staircase that's dedicated to the people who he dedicated the book to.
Yeah, I live a block from there.
Oh, nice.
Literally a block from there.
That was Andy Abrams. That was his theory for the longest time. I think it really still is, because when we did the New York meetup and Andy was there, him and a bunch of our like the old school treasure hunting friends, like he kept us down there for like 45 minutes going, look, and this and this and this and this. I was like, well, let's just dig. And he's like, no, it's New York.
All right. Well, cool. I appreciate you hearing me out and, giving me some objective feedback.
I mean, I wish you luck, man. Like I've come to the conclusion that for a lot of this stuff, like as long as people are respectful and moving towards some sort of end, the conversation is good, right? Like we were talking earlier about the people who just try to, just derail conversations. Like as long as that isn't happening, the conversation is healthy, and conversations like this need to happen. So I'm glad. Maybe it will encourage some New York hunters to help you out with Central Park. There are some New York hunters that don't care about where they dig holes. So
that's great. Well, I'd like to talk to those people. So please reach out to me. Yeah. Thanks again. It's been an honor, and I appreciate you being able to get me onto this after a few weeks.
Yeah, man, I'm really sorry with the storm and everything else that happened, but I appreciate you being patient. Do you want to stick around and talk about this other hunt with?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited to know more about it.
I am too. I don't know anything about it. Like I was saying, like I stay in my lane. So, and I'm so nervous about like promoting other hunts, because what if they turn out to be trash and then somebody's like, George told me to go do a trash hunt.
What is there to know? That is the question.
So this is Peregrine. Can we just call you Perry?
Yeah. If you want to call me Perry, that's just fine.
I'm just gonna call you Perry. Perry is from Discord, one of the elusive Discorders.
Yes, I am. I am discordant in that effect. Yeah, my hunt name is Peregrine, and there's just something I wanted to say about Kuni, is that I really appreciate that your theory was presented in tones of, this is my theory, and not you idiots who haven't been able to figure out it's so blinkingly obvious and things like that.
Yeah, there's
so many people. Yeah, there's definitely definitely too much of that. So I like the idea that you presented it as a theory that is a work in progress. And there were definitely some things that resonated with me. I'm not a New York guy, but Hymn of Hard Words, you were talking about that it's maybe difficult words because it's Danish, but you also pointing to a statue. So maybe it's, words that are on a statue that are either engraved in stone or in bronze or something like that.
Yeah,
So
somebody asked what
maybe
was written on the, like what was carved on the book on that statue. Like,
exactly.
were there words on the book?
Oh, there are. It's the ugly duckling
Oh,
in English, not in Danish.
nice.
Okay. So maybe there's something in there then that like that. I'm trying to get the screen saving going on, screen sharing going on here myself.
It
Yeah,
should be
so
allowed.
it should be allowed. I did not allow it. Let me see here. I'll have to find some. There we go. No big deal. Okay, I will want to share some screen stuff with you, but yes, what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about There's Treasure Inside, which is actually the name of the new treasure book that's coming out. And basically, George and I wanted to talk about it, not really in the context of the hunt itself. I agree with George that it's not actually that exciting for me to think about jumping on another hunt, but it's a very, very, very well-funded hunt. And there are many ways in which it encourages people to function along the lines of secret searchers. So I'm more interested in two things. One is how it might impact people in the secret community, because there might be a lot of people tromping over and digging illegally, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But also, maybe it kind of represents a next generation kind of hunt. It's very clear that the guy designed it, at least with the Forest Fen hunt in mind. And I find it fascinating to think in terms of are there lessons to be learned from Forest Fen? And maybe are there lessons to be learned from the way that Byron Preiss developed The Secret originally, which leads to the interesting question, if he had to do it over again, if he was still here and we were doing The Secret 2.0 or something like that, what might have been done differently? So I think those kinds of things are interesting. I'm going to stop talking for a minute to get my screen to share. So will you guys please carry on?
Yeah. So this hunt worries me. And it worries me for a couple of reasons, mainly because it is such a big prize. Like, it is a huge prize, and there's several of them. It's not just one. It's not like the Forest Fen hunt where it's like one thing buried somewhere out in the middle of the woods in a national park. There's several of them hidden all over the place. And have you've seen this, right, Kuni?
Yeah, I'll show you some screenshots as soon as I can.
My concern is whenever there are huge, like, the thing that sets The Secret apart from things like Forest Fen is that Forest Fen was worth money and The Secret is worth nothing. You go broke. Even if you solve a secret puzzle, you go broke doing it. If you solve the Forest Fen hunt, you got a couple of $1,000,000. If you solve this one, you've got, I don't know, $750,000 per cache, whatever it is. I guarantee you this hunt's going to cause divisiveness. That's the word I'm looking for. In the same way that the Forest Fen hunt did. Like, the last few years of Forest Fen, that community was like, it was a dumpster fire with people undercutting each other, insulting each other, fighting, lawsuits and craziness. Like, that's my concern with hunts like this. They bring in people who don't care about the hunt. They don't care about the adventure. They care about the money and doing whatever they can to get the money. So that's my biggest concern.
I think we lost him.
Did we lose him? That sucks.
He'll
I was
be
just
back.
ranting. Yeah. I don't know. Like, and that's one of the main reasons I don't like to promote these things. Like, there was another one. Oh, I forget the name of it, but the book was like $90 and there was like a cache buried somewhere. And it was like, these hunts for big money cause problems. Like, that's the Project Skydrop that just came out.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
That golden weird thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, Chris Preacher pointed me to their Discord recently, and it was just like 4chan in a Discord. It's like people posting porn and just people like screaming obscenities at each other. It was nuts. It's just anything where you put up big money it just
Yeah.
everything just goes crazy too quick.
You are completely correct. And I believe the value, last I checked, the value, overall value of all the objects was about $3 million. And maybe it's up to like $4 million now. So what's,
Hey, Jason, I
yes.
think the cover is on your camera. So if you just
Oh, he's
move the
probably just got
cover
it
over.
blurred. I don't think he wants to be on camera.
Yeah,
He's
I'm
like,
sorry, I
no,
can't.
it's cool. Yeah. He's got like a professional life, like apparently. Like I think, are you using a voice changer? Because it's 100%
No,
sounding.
no, this is my voice. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, no. No, yeah, I'm a professional author and historian, and I haven't quite sussed out what my colleagues would think about me
He's Dan
getting too
Carlin. That's what
involved
he
with a
is.
secret. Yeah, there we go. I'm Dan Carlin. Um, but I'm probably a San Francisco guy. I've been in the hunt for about 2.5 years or so. And I would say that uh, I'm one of the few people that does not have a grand theory to be selling and pushing. I'm not a expedition unknown person. I had actually gotten into it when I had heard about the hoax casque that had been unveiled. I thought that was so stupid, it made me so angry. But the reality is that I remember when the secret came out the very first time, and I was standing in the bookstore and looking at it. I was absolutely mesmerized with the first image, with the San Francisco image. And I just loved so much the idea that it quietly and peacefully conveyed hidden meaning. And this
Mhm.
meant so much to me. And I wanted to actually take the book and cut it out and put it on my wall. But my girlfriend at the time said, I'm not going to put a picture of another woman on my wall. But so that was my connection with it. I've been very aware of the book and of Byron Preiss. But I've never been a solver. It never even occurred to me to try to solve puzzles. I'm not a crossword guy. I'm not a clue guy. But when I heard about the fake thing happening, I thought at the very least I could help other people put things together and put the pictures together. So I've been trying to use some of my analysis skills. When George and his team came forward with the Fairmount clue, I'm the one that put out that there was this restaurant Canlis right where the stone wall door is there. I don't know if people know that, but the reason why there's this interesting rough-hewn stone wall at the ground floor of the Fairmont Hotel is because there was this um, chain of very, very high-end steak restaurants called Canlis, and they started in Honolulu. There's actually one still together, and it is in Seattle. And the whole thing about Canlis is that they were the first people that used female waitstaff, and the female waitstaff um, were all Asian Americans, and they're all dressed in their native garb. So you would literally be waited upon by somebody wearing a silk robe, a kimono robe, and they would be Chinese, they would be Japanese. And it's because they had started in Honolulu. So it's quite possible, at least I'm just threw this out there, that the entire concept of the Asian woman with the folds of her robe might have been a direct connection to Canlis, which was actually the stone wall on the stone wall's door.
Was that there in the 80s?
That was still there in the 80s, yes. They
Nice.
closed down uh late 80s, early early 90s maybe, something like that. Yes, but
Didn't
I
know.
was upset that was there. And I also found the menu for the sweet
The
corner.
sweet corner. That was very
Yeah.
helpful. I think Matt bought one of those.
Oh, that would make sense. Somebody grabbed on that. So my perspective is that I'm really trying to help people as much as possible. And I do believe that this particular hunt is going to lead us with interesting issues. I'm sorry, I can't do any graphics because I'll have to entirely re-download the Zoom software. So we'll just do that sometime in the future,
That's
every
fine.
now and again. But but I am interested in the idea that maybe this framework for next generation treasure hunts. It is done by a guy named John Collins Black. And the thing about Mr. Black or Collins Black is he's a Bitcoin millionaire. He's somebody that invested in Bitcoin in the early ages, and apparently has created quite a fortune for himself. He seemed to have been a follower of of at least the Forrest Fenn treasure, because one of the things that he has purchased that is put into this treasure hunt is the Forrest Fenn journal that had never been opened before. And actually, there's a lot of anger about him in the Forrest Fenn community because he took this historical document that seems to have been interesting and did not share with the rest of the community. So,
Well,
if
in
you
his
go on
defense,
YouTube,
I don't think he was
yes,
allowed. Like, didn't Shiloh and the Forrest Fenn family say that it was copywritten and he couldn't share it?
I am not a Forrest Fenn Hunt kind of person, but I knew there's some animosity there. Maybe you can tell me
Yeah.
some more,
Yeah,
George.
I'm pretty sure that he wasn't allowed to share like the contents he could read, but he couldn't. And now this is a vague memory from a hunt that I
Okay.
don't really follow, but I'm pretty sure that they said that he owned the text, but he didn't own the distribution. So he could open it and he could read it, but he couldn't share the contents with anybody. And back then there was like drama about whether or not Forrest Fenn's grandson was writing a book or doing a Netflix documentary or whatever and was going to give out the information there. It was the same, like a doll or whatever, Forrest Fenn's friend posted basically the text and they made him take it down.
Oh, okay.
If I remember correctly. I could be a little wrong here on the details,
Well,
but the broad
here's
picture.
my question. My question to you, George, because you do have more of a sense of the overall parameters. What was there about the Forrest Fenn hunt that you think someone who was coming up after that would want to try to fix? What were the perceived problems or the anger points or the danger points that that really popped out from that particular hunt?
Forrest Fenn's ego. Forrest Fenn's ego played a large part in that hunt being a huge dumpster fire, especially towards the end. Forrest Fenn's ego was just huge. And it seems to me as an outsider that hunt was specifically built to fuel his ego. Just the way he acted, the way he interacted with searchers, the way he decided to be sort of, vague and puzzling in just the most inappropriate and wrong ways. I mean, the lack of care he seemed to exhibit when people started dying, that set the tone for that hunt, like 100%. I think the ego of the hunter or the ego of the creator in that case was what caused that hunt to take on such a bad and negative image, especially towards the end. Like, take The Secret, for instance. All of the creators have come out and been like, just work together, man. It's fun. If you subscribe to Byron's "This hunt was created to get you out into the wilderness and have fun with your family" or whatever. I mean, Forrest Fenn said those kind of things about his hunt, but his actions completely contradicted those sorts of things. Whereas the Secret creators are still like, no, just go out and have fun. It's not that big of a deal. It's just yada yada yada. Anyway, again, long-winded answer to your questions.
No. And this question for both you and Kuni is that why were you not attracted to the Forrest Fenn? Why did you not jump into that? Why did you stick with The Secret? What are the appeals of The Secret in particular? And I kind of feel the same way, even though the stakes are so much lower.
Kuni, did you?
I mean, for me, it's really just kind of geographical access. I live in New York, so I can look for the New York casque, or I could travel around to any city and go to the city parks there and look for casques. But it seemed like with the Forrest Fenn treasure, it's just out there in the Rocky Mountains somewhere, or whichever mountain range. So it's like a real needle in a haystack type of problem. I'm not going to just take a week off and go walk around in the mountains and hope I'll recognize something.
Yeah. For me, like, I've been into puzzles. I often say this. Me and Brett, we've been into puzzles for as long as I can remember, for years and years and years. I don't know that I knew about Forrest Fenn right when it came out, but I knew about it shortly thereafter because it was talked about on Reddit. There's a couple of ways I decide whether or not I want to work on a hunt. And the number one is, when the hunt is released, what's the format? Is the format a puzzle, or is the format some dude's biography? because I care about the puzzle. I don't care about this random dude. So if you put out a biography and you were like, there's a puzzle in this biography, I'm not going to take a look at it. Cause I, like I said before about the ego thing, like that's the biggest sign to me that this hunt is not about the hunt itself. It's about your ego. You're wanting people to troll through this 90, 100-page book about your life when all they want to do is solve a puzzle. But then, as more and more came out about the hunt itself, not about the book, I just saw the craziness that sort of surrounded it. Even in sort of maybe not the beginning of the hunt, but sort of the middle of the hunt. It was just crazy. There was craziness everywhere, and you couldn't. I'm the kind of person where I feel like in a puzzle or in a treasure hunt, like no puzzle or treasure hunt is going to be solved by a single person, right? Like each person has a specific set of skills that add to that they can use to break a puzzle or a hunt. But unless you get very lucky, you don't have all of the skills necessary for that hunt. You need to work with people. And that community was never, it never attracted any sort of teamwork. Even when like YouTubers would get together and try to set up teams, those teams would be either divided or extremely divisive.
And you probably don't think that adding many, many more millions of dollars to the equation is going to help that, do you?
No. Especially like if you're marketing it as a follow-up to Forrest Fenn, which I've kind of seen that with this hunt. It's more marketed as Forrest Fenn 2.0. Except now it's worth more and there's more of them, you know? So I feel like the author, and it may not be his fault, you know, like I don't know his motivation. I've never spoken to them. I don't know anything about it, but I worry. Now this hunt may take off and it may be very team based and it may, you know, the community may be awesome and I may just be talking out of my ass. I don't know. We'll find out.
I don't think I share your trepidations, George. I feel like one of the attractions of The Secret is that the stakes are meaningful but not life-changing.
Yeah.
And what is basically happening is that The Secret's almost an invitation to collaborate, meaning that Byron Preiss has told this story and he is inviting you to complete the story. So he's, you know, you decode it, so on and so forth. And the idea is that there would be an interesting story to be told. So there's that sense of invitation. And there isn't that sense of ego that you're talking about. So I really like that idea of, oh, this is a mystery, and we will resolve this mystery rather than look here, look there, look here, look there. You know, Kuni, you were saying that The Secret is a scavenger hunt, but then you said it was, you know, maybe more than that. I feel like it's not a scavenger hunt. In fact, some people, I feel like that's where they get stuck. It's not go here, do this, go here, do that. But the idea of putting something together, putting both poetry and imagery together is almost opera. And that's an interesting concept, that marriage between imagery and poetry, or music and poetry, or imagery and stage. It's really, really kind of cool. And I'm going back to when I was just a kid and looking at the book in the original bookstore and just feeling like that original picture just exuded mystery. And I am still moved by that. What we have here, the interesting thing is that I do think that that the author, John Collins Black, agrees with you to a certain degree, George. He does seem to think that there was this ego at the core of it. And what he's trying to do instead is turn this into kind of a journey of self-discovery, of self-exploration. He founded the small press that this book is being published on, and he published a children's book before that. The children's book is called, let's see here, it's called Our Unbreakable Thread. And in fact, he has said that there's a clue to the hunt that is built into his previous book. But that book, the message of that book, the message of his overall publishing house, and the message of some of the marketing materials I've seen in this is that he says this is a journey of self-discovery, of self-actualization, and that the whole point is to find yourself, so on and so forth. So he does seem to be kind of draping this in a lot of new age imagery or new age tropes, that sort of thing. I'm not quite sure if that's because he thinks that people will be really, really disappointed, and he's trying to say, the real treasure were the friends we made along the way, or something like that. There is no, however, official clearinghouse for communication. I know that some websites have been trying to put together that, or the Discord, like you were saying, but there doesn't seem to be anything that seems to encourage collaboration. It seems to be that's focused on an individual journey. The other thing is that there's actually 5 different boxes. There's the main one, which is the lion's share box, and it's the big one, which I would be showing you pictures of if I could share my screen. But then there are smaller boxes. There's the Forrest Fenn box, which is quite specifically a tribute to Forrest Fenn. There's the Pokemon box. So that seems to be reaching out to a different kind of demographic. There's the past and future box, which sounds really vague. I probably imagine that's probably the wastebasket taxon that he threw in to finish other stuff. And then one's called the Appalachian footpath box, which you would think is probably somewhere on the Appalachian footpath. This guy has no experience in doing puzzles, but he does have a lot of money. And I have what some people have been able to actually recreate at least the partial inventory of what's inside. And so here's the thing. This is a lot of stuff, very, very valuable stuff, but also not stuff that you would bury. He says that he has not buried them, but he does say that they are hidden on site. And the very name of the book itself, There's Treasure Inside, seems to convey that you find one of these casks, or I don't think we need to call them casks, but the treasure box, and you open them up, and this is there inside. So to me, the entire idea of being able to somehow curate some things are very kind of fragile items, and also make it hidden. He does say boots on the ground are required, so you are actually going somewhere and finding the location, and then you're zeroing in on the location, and then you find a cask, but you're not digging. There's no metal detectors or anything like that involved. But there's like the 1960 Rome Olympic gold medal in gymnastics, which he bought. The Atlanta 1996 Olympic gold medal for footballer, 96 carat Chivor emerald. I'm just looking here. Jackie Kennedy's Art Deco diamond sapphire frosted crystal bow brooch from the 1920s. A gold pendant by Pablo Picasso. Well, I mean, there's literally, I'm looking at a Google spreadsheet here. I shared this with you, George, and there's like 63 specific items that they found so far. And these are simply people looking at the photos in the marketing and some of the marketing materials and seeing what's being mentioned.
I really wish he would lead with that more. I feel like that would take away some of the is it trepidation? Is that the word I'm looking for about this hunt, at least on my part? If you were like, hey man, go find a graded 9 Charizard Hollow, or go find a letter from Amelia Earhart, or go find, what was it, documents signed by Napoleon or whatever, and it wasn't like, go find a $2.5 million treasure.
Exactly. Yeah. You can find a Michael Jordan Fleer rookie card
Yeah.
in mint condition. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, some of the stuff in there is really, a lot of the stuff in there is really cool. I mean, there's some generic, like it's a gold coin, but a lot of the stuff in there is really cool. And I think that would be more, searchers would be more into that than just $2.5 million.
I don't know what's going on, because one thing that's interesting is that the launch date for the book, and I think it's like a $50 some odd book, was supposed to be October 21st, and it's been pushed back to November 12th. So I don't know really what that is all about. I do know that he says that all the boxes are hidden in the United States. There's no more than one box in any state. None are in private property. All are in what he calls safe spaces. And like I said, there's no digging, no shovels or metal detectors. He says don't search when snow is on the ground. Also, he's suggested doing a grid search of the area. He said check every nook and cranny. Um,
Where is he saying
so
these things?
what's he saying?
Where is he
What's he
saying?
saying this? This is some of the marketing materials that somebody has restated. I have it on the original website. So those are actual things that he has said so far. Um, he says that clues within the book, which there are clues within the book, which once solved correctly, will take a searcher to the location of a treasure box within decent proximity. And that's an interesting question I'd like to explore a little bit more here. What is the concept of decent proximity? Um, this is actually one of the pointers that I feel like is toward the secret itself. I think that decent proximity is kind of one of the bugbears of the search that Byron Preiss designed. I really have this kind of frustrating feeling that even the absolute solves, where a cask has been dug out of the ground, um, you can't pinpoint it to what I call shovel turn. You can't get to the point where that's where it is, you dig it up. I think about Boston, and it's like he was saying, "I can't believe you haven't dug it up. Why could you?" And he was digging multiple hole against hole against hole. I think about Cleveland, where it was in one direction, and almost as a joke, the guy started digging on the other end of it. So I wonder, and this is my question to you, both of you, do you feel like Byron didn't solve these things down to the point of shovel turn?
What do you think, Kuni?
I mean, I think he got pretty close. So if you connect the dots on the solve and you get to the dig site and you're identifying the clues properly, I think you can get down to a couple feet of where the box is. And then you just have to probe around and find it. Um, so I think it's fairly precise. You see some solves out there, and people will say, "Oh, it's somewhere between this mile stretch of the park." Yeah, I don't think that's what Byron intended at all. I think it's a lot more precise.
Cooney, can I ask you a question? And this is totally anonymized, you don't tell me where or when or what, but have you ever actually dug for a buried for a cask or other buried treasure?
No, I've done a little probing, and then my probe bent, so I had to go home. But that's it.
Ooh, you got one of those cheap probes that screws into one another or something like that, the hollow
Yeah,
probes.
yeah. Obviously, I'll have to make more of an investment next time.
Well, George, I know you have dug many, many, many holes. It's harder than most people think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's way harder than I've seen. Like, it's my favorite. My favorite thing is getting called out to the Fountain of Youth when somebody's like, "I got permission to dig a hole, and I'm gonna go dig this big hole," and I go out there and they're like 3 shovelfuls and they're done.
Yeah.
Especially like, I don't mean any insult by this, but the demographic for Expedition Unknown is generally older people, and they think that they're still like 17 and can just go out and dig all day. And then they get there and they realize, no, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. I used to think that why isn't there a database of places where people have dug? And I believe you pointed out, George, that it's totally useless as a database because
Yeah.
people will dig 3 shovelfuls and give up.
Well,
Um,
I like to. I got a new way to point out why now. John
okay.
Michaels did a hunt, silver scratch, silver sunset, something sunset trail. He did a sunset trail hunt, and for years everybody had narrowed down the spot that this thing was buried to under a bench in the center of the bench, right underneath it. Just dig a hole and you'll find all this silver. And people
Hmm.
dug and dug and dug and dug and dug that bench and never found it. And then one dude just went out and dug a little deeper and found it in the exact same spot everybody had been digging before. So that's always been my fear, is that if I put on 12 treasures where everybody's digging, it's just going to be like 4 inches lower, you know?
Well, that raises the question because I'm looking at the rules that have been established in this There's Treasure Inside hunt. And he's saying, oh, you don't need to dig. There's no need for metal detecting. You don't need to disturb the environment. Just look, maybe put down a grid. Don't hunt with the snow on the ground. But I don't think he reverse engineered it. If somebody has a theory that they're absolutely convinced that it is, in the home of Gianni Versace in downtown Miami, and and that person has jumped over the wall and they don't find it, they're going to start digging. They're going to
Yeah.
start pickaxing, so on and so
Well,
forth.
one of the other rules was it wasn't on private property. So if they're going to jump over Johnny Versace, whatever, or they're going to jump over Versace's fence, they're, crazy.
My point being,
like
I was using a dramatic,
I
dramatic
I
example.
100% know. Yeah, I get what you're saying. My thing is though, like I can, as a person who's done a bunch of different puzzles and who's made several of them, I can think of 1,000 really, really creative ways to hide a treasure where it's not buried in the ground, where there's nothing in the ground. You don't have to dig anything up.
Mhm.
So that kind of excites me. The fact that he at least took away the whole destroy every park that you come across aspect. Because that was a
Okay.
big thing in the Finn hunt too, right? Like people were just digging up random parts of these national parks, and even after it was found, they still went back and destroyed that park. So if he took that away, that's A+ in my book.
So you think that it's possible to have these casques, which are actual physical size that we don't have the dimensions, but they're fairly big because we know, how many of these things that they contain, that a way that those things are being curated, being preserved in a stable environment that is also in a location that is hidden but not buried.
Yeah.
I mean,
The easiest
so
way to do that would just be to give it to somebody. Give it to
what do you
somebody
mean?
and let the clues lead you to this place.
So you have to knock on somebody's door or something like that?
Or, well, I wouldn't say a private property. I would say something like a museum or something that where going there and asking these questions wouldn't be absurd.
Go there and speak the secret code word or something.
Yeah.
And then,
I mean, shit, the anniversary hunt did that for the longest time. Go solve the puzzle, find this place, ask for the dude, get your treasure.
Well, I think that's a creative solution. However, he does seem to be saying get out of nature. And
Yeah, but there's places you can do that, like there's places in Yellowstone. If Forrest Fenn had foresight, he could do that. He could put it at a ranger station, and you just end up at a ranger station. And you can set up with trustworthy people that'll hold, that amount of value for you, especially if you have a relationship with them already, or make a donation to their park or whatever, there's
Okay.
there's 100 creative ways you could do that.
Well, I think you're right. However, I also feel like there's a huge amount of value in these things.
Mhm.
So the idea that, okay, we're going to give this to somebody and give them instructions to not give it to anybody else unless they come at a certain point and they're aware that this thing is happening. I mean, I'm thinking about what happened to the original Masquerade, the golden hair. And, the person who quote unquote solved it was actually the ex-boyfriend of the ex-girlfriend of the artist. And, he had confided, so on and so forth. So, other than like a refrigerated rock or something like that, some of these things, I'm not quite sure how you can eliminate that.
Well, I mean, if
I'm
you
not-
do, you could also do a grid, since he's saying maybe lay out a grid. He could be telling you, search everything that you see, search top, bottom, side, whatever. He could take
Right.
a little brass plaque and mount it to the bottom of a tree root, or the bottom of a trash can or whatever. Something that's not going to move. Not obviously not a trash can, but you get what I'm saying. That just
he
tells
would-
you, hey, give me a call.
But he says don't hunt when snow is on the ground, and this is also coming out in November. I don't know what that would mean. I don't know whether or not this is a good hunt or a bad hunt. However, I do believe that it has not been user tested.
Yeah.
And even if all of your scenarios are correct, and he has people that are blithely standing by waiting to award the treasure, people are going to convince themselves that it is in the middle of Treasure Island, or it's the top of the bell tower at UC Berkeley or whatever.
Yeah.
And when they don't find the polite little thing, they're not going to be polite.
Yeah.
So in terms of what this means for the secret community, it is possible that we will be having an infestation of people that are demanding to see this or open this up or so on and so forth. And in many ways, digging is less destructive. So the idea that you might have somebody breaking into a equipment hut, supply hut on national park or something like that, might really, really kind of tear the whole situation down. So I'm a little bit concerned about that.
Yeah. I mean, I share your concern. And what's bad, just like you said about it not being user tested, these are the kind of things that you can't tell a hunter without completely giving it away, right? Like you can't tell them, don't dig a hole. All you got to do is find a guy, without completely giving away part of the hunt. And seeing the way people work these hunts, they don't generally get those kind of, they don't automatically infer that, if that's what,
Yep.
if you know what I'm saying. So,
Well,
I don't know.
the other question is, what is the motivation of the person putting on this hunt? We know the motivation of Forrest Fenn, like you point out, he really wanted to memorialize himself. We know the motivation of Byron Preiss. He really hoped this would sell 1 million copies, and it did not. This book, even if it sells 1 million copies, is not going to substantially change the life path of the guy that's done it. In fact, he's putting a lot of money. Like I said, it's his very own publishing house behind it. I've looked a little bit into his background. He does seem to be a lucky guy that bought a lot of Bitcoin. I'm really not quite sure what his motive is, what he's trying to do here.
Well, if you know a lot about his history, what kind of person is he?
Well, I don't know a lot about his history, except that he is somebody that fortuitously invested in Bitcoin at an early point. He lives in Los Angeles. He has his personal fortune is probably in the tens of millions of dollars. That seems to be about as much information as I've heard. He has not taken the money and put it in any other notable public investments. Basically he wrote that book during COVID, the children's book, and then he kind of got interested in it. He does present that the idea of a national treasure hunt with multiple hidden casks came to him like a bolt out of the blue. There's nothing in any of his materials that seems to indicate that he was even aware of the secret. I'm sure that he was, because he got deep enough into the situation that he bought Forrest Fenn's, diary, so on and so forth, in the olive jar. But that's really about enough that I've been able to find out about him. Now, there's something I would like to point out, and this has nothing to do with who he is as a person. This is just an idle speculation. And literally, please don't think that I am pointing any fingers in any direction. But it occurs to me that a treasure hunt might be a really, really wonderful way to launder money.
Well, Bitcoin's already a pretty good way to launder money.
Well, that's just it. Just imagine. You hypothetically say, I'm burying Bitcoins, I'm burying these collectible treasures, I'm burying this gold, I'm burying this, that, and oops, nobody ever finds it. Well, I get to write the entire project off. Because it was a marketing cost.
I'm paranoid about people. I'm not going down that path. I'm not that paranoid. Yeah.
I am not saying that is the case with this person. I am, however, saying that in the process of me trying to figure out what his motivation is, that particular little interesting piece of information did kind of occur to me. But so my question, because I want to bring this back to the idea of next generation treasure hunts, and also what maybe Byron would have done differently this time around. We know Byron buried at least 12 casks, maybe the 13th one, if we agree or disagree. When are you going to come up with those t-shirts, by the way?
I disagree. I don't know. The guy that said that's such a nice guy, and I kind of want that meme to die just because he's such a nice guy. He doesn't deserve that, but it was too funny to ignore, but he's such a nice guy.
if you know what we're talking about, Kuni, is that at the Cleveland meetup, were the questions being asked directly of John Jude Palancar, and one of the persons was referring to that there was a 13th cask or something like that,
Right.
and John said there is no 13th cask, and the guy said, I disagree. And that's kind of the sociology gap that I think that John Collins Black has not taken into consideration. The idea, see, he thinks he's being safe by being polite and thinking, okay, well, you just look around, you'll be able to find it. You don't have to dig or anything like that. I almost feel like breaking and entering is going to be involved in this. People are quite willing to literally stand up in the face of the person that was co-creator of the secret and say that he is wrong. So there is this so there's that kind of thing happening. But the idea of Byron buried these casks. Do you think he ever tried to dig up one? Did he ever reverse engineer this process?
Byron, no. I don't, given the way that John said that these were planned and that these were done, I don't think he ever reverse engineered them. I don't think he ever allowed anybody to work on the puzzle before it was published. I think he just ran with it. I mean, like, if he had, there's some glaringly obvious problems. Like, if he had given somebody the solution to Cleveland and said, okay, go work it out, here's where it's buried, there would be a glaringly obvious problem. Like, it's on the wrong side of the planner. I don't know. Like, you were asking earlier about the pinpoint locations, and that's what I always go back to. Out of the 3 solved, we know 3 were solved. We know where they were. We still don't know exactly where you were supposed to dig for any of them, or why and why.
Exactly. And we have this new hunt that once again is building itself around, quote, within decent proximity. And I feel like Byron Preiss thought that would be good enough. He thought maybe people might have fun digging around or something like that, getting this house dirty. But here's my big question, George, is that when the Chicago team presented him with the absolute evidence that they were in the right place, he didn't say, you're in the right place, congratulations, you win, here's the jewel. He said, I can't believe you haven't found it yet. And they kept doing it. The entire thing was set up at that time to be able to simply give him the solve.
Yeah.
Why didn't he accept the solve as it was presented to him? Why did he keep him digging?
I don't know the answer to that question. Other than, like, they live there, they're already doing it, they might as well. I mean, you want the thrill of actually pulling it out of the ground.
Yeah,
Right.
the publicity is better than just
That's
saying
true.
you win and I'm going to drop your prize in the mail and thank you for playing.
Yeah.
Well, I
That's
think
true.
that comes up for discussion of the role of vagueness in designing a hunt. And we have learned that there are some degrees that, like, Palancar did bake in a degree of vagueness. So, for example, his map of Illinois in the Chicago painting doesn't really look like Illinois. If you squint or turn sideways or something like that, like, I guess we have to accept that as a map of Illinois if you are, reverse engineering it. But I think that they thought maybe what they did is they thought, wow, this is going to be so easy. And so they decided that they would make it harder not by making more clues to be unraveled. They made it harder by making it vaguer at certain points. And I wonder if more than anything else, that's why we are here at 40 plus years still trying to find some of them. But I think about information theory in general. Is it possible to accurately encode a a, a hunt, an enigma in a poem and in an image to such a degree that you could be able to pinpoint a shovel turn without giving the whole story away?
I think, like, I think people are way too set in the past, and
Mm,
that's the goal that they're going for, when that's not the direction that treasure hunts are actually taking. Right? Like, that's
hmm
what puzzle people, quote unquote puzzle people, are used to: some art and a verse, or some art and a text, and you work it out. But that's not the direction that and puzzle people haven't caught on to this yet, but it's not the direction people actually solving puzzles are going. Like the what is the biggest puzzle the two of you can think of in the last 10 years? What's the puzzle with the most people working on it that the two of you can think of?
Forrest Fenn, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
No. It's like Mount Chiliad. The Mount Chiliad mystery. You guys ever heard of that?
No.
It's part of Grand Theft Auto 5. It's a mystery surrounding one mountain in Grand Theft Auto 5, and there's like 100 million people that were working on it. There's another one in Red Dead Redemption. There's a serial killer in Red Dead Redemption 2, and there's an entire mystery around it. And these things are supposed to solve to some out in the open, out in the world, nobody really knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the direction actual puzzles are going. It's video games. People are super like, God, I wish an actual puzzle person would introduce a puzzle actual game, because like the market for puzzles is going video games more than anything else. And this whole like we need to encode a book it's in the past. It's played out. There's not much you can do with it anymore. I don't know. Like I see these video game args, like Halo had one called something about bees. I love bees, I think is what it was called. Millions and millions and millions of people played that game. There was a cartoon that had one where you had to you took clues and then you went out and found this huge sculpture of one of the cartoon characters out in the middle of the woods somewhere. Millions of people played these games. And then we've got these people that are putting out books. Like maybe 10,000 people will read.
Well, I guess that brings us back to the whole question of puzzle development in the modern age. One of the things that seems to me, if you were creating a puzzle now, you would also create the platform for communicating ideas. That would be part of it. In this particular case, there's treasure inside. That's not the case. In fact, did the Forrest Fenn treasure, did it get launched with a book that you had to buy? I'm asking you that question, George.
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, so you had to go buy.
It was his book. You had to buy. You had to order it from him.
Okay. So he seems to be kind of patterning himself upon that, but so much of the stuff inside it seems to be reaching out to a different generation. As you point out, I'm really surprised that my teenage kids haven't told me about that particular treasure within. Oh, actually, I don't think I ever let them play Grand Theft Auto, now that I think about it.
Don't get sucked in the Mount Chiliad mystery. Like, it's long and it's crazy.
It's not Animal Crossing, I hope so.
No,
okay.
Yeah.
That's
or
good.
like the mystery of who killed it's literally prostitutes in Red Dead Redemption 2. Like these are crazy, huge, all-encompassing mysteries that millions of people are trying to work out.
Okay, I get what you're saying. I feel like the point about this, there are treasures inside a book or whatever, is that it is trying to innovate in a direction that I think the modern time, the zeitgeist will reject. I think that we didn't need a glow up in terms of the stakes. I don't think we needed, an autographed photo of Amelia Earhart or a Pokemon card or something like that. I don't think we needed $3+ million. I think that we needed more of a sense of achievement, and maybe that'll happen. Maybe this will be beautiful and nuanced and so on and so forth, and maybe it will be all the friends we made along the way. But I also do feel like he's been making some very, I don't want to say naive assumptions, but assumptions that have kind of been born in other direction with the secret community. So this idea that people are going to read his book, develop a theory, go walking around somewhere, not find something that is an obvious, either refrigerated fiberglass rock or a door to knock on or something like that. The idea that they will just quietly go away and feel that they are better for the experience, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that shovels are going to be brought out. I think that doors are going to be jimmied, so on and so forth. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I am, however, also just thinking about what happens over time with The Secret. And one of the things that I have been observing is that as more and more time goes by, people pursue more and more complex solutions. They never seem to think that, oh, actually, this will be just as simple as the one that I've been solved, but just in a completely different direction. No, they go, well, actually, there's this overriding thing, so on and so forth. And this is not to be negative against you, Curry, but there's also this whole factor of Google pareidolia that, I see these people where it's again and again and again that they will like take a snippet from one of the paintings, and then they will find something on Google that resembles that, and they'll go, well, here's my grand theory, so on and so forth, and it's from a perspective in a location that would never have been available to Byron to be able to take a Polaroid of it in the first place, but also the level of detail isn't something that gets conveyed in a Polaroid. And I wish people would look more and more at this. The people that, so we have so many people that haven't seen Polaroids. You've seen Polaroids, right, George?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
suck.
they're colorful. They are abstract to a certain degree.
Blurry.
They're blurry. There's a certain degree to which they don't have strong details. In fact, a lot of people used to do when you would get a fresh Polaroid is if you pressed on it with a closed pen, with a pen point, some of the colors would blur together and you would get this kind of impressionistic effect, kind of like a Van Gogh or something like that. The whole point about it was just sheer documentation. It was not about this, clear-cut representation of reality. So the idea that he was faced with Polaroids, I think there's a certain degree of vagueness that was inherent in the medium that was being communicated to him. At the same time, I wonder whether or not there was deliberate vagueness that was just kind of thrown in at the end. I don't want to say that it was a bad puzzle. I honestly have so much respect for Byron Preiss, but I do think that there might be some lessons learned. I talk about the reverse engineering. So maybe he didn't need to like dig up a couch and find out how hard that was, but he might have been able to say, well, so I put this in Milwaukee, and what would happen if someone thought that it was in Cleveland, or what would happen if somebody thought it was in Montreal? It's actually a perfect example. I was in Montreal recently, and I have no theory of Montreal, but I was spending some time there, and I put out on the Discord, hey, anybody want me to do some boots on the ground in Montreal? And so people did. And so I'm out there on Drummond Street, walking up Drummond Street from the Leg Eater, and I see the original Mitchell Holland building, which is 3 stories tall, which happened to be right across the street from the Citadel building that George likes. And you walk up a few more feet, and there's the place where the leaves were set in bronze, and so on and so forth. I did not. Oh, also the whole point about the woman silently playing the harpsichord. I went to the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts and saw this beautiful. It's a very, very prominently featured Dutch master that is a woman quietly playing the harpsichord. You walk into the wing of that time period, and it's the very first image you see. It's on his own wall, and so I like going through this once again with no dog in this hunt, and going, I could actually see how Beating of the World is Drummond and this, that, this, that, this, that, and so forth. I'm not saying that I emerged from that as an advocate for anything, but the idea of means testing, that somebody could have done that, would be very interesting. And someone has actually done this. They've taken every single image and every single verse and tried it on the different cities, and things go kind of an interesting direction. So
I think it's a testament to what you were talking about earlier with the vagueness, right? The fact that you can take 2 verses and make them fit in basically the same area, in basically the same ways, and convince people that both are correct.
Yep.
Like we talk about how exact Byron was and how much thought he put into it or whatever, but you ended up with a puzzle where you can do that. Like
I think
shows kind of little foresight to me. Like he didn't even consider the implications of other verses.
He did not, but he's not around anymore, and he can't hit redo. But what we can do in terms of our mindset is understand where some of the weaknesses might be. I mean, why am I talking about a Secret 2.0 when there will never be a Secret 2.0? Because thinking about a Secret 2.0 might allow us to actually adjust our own mindset. So working on the assumption that, hey, maybe there's some vagueness built into this, might have those people that don't, they don't stop digging at 2 feet or something like that. Or more importantly, the idea that this stuff was not reverse means tested, and therefore it could actually coincidentally lead you down a garden path. People don't bake that in.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think people could do is they could have, there's this, basically, I would say a leap blindness. What happens is that I hear a lot of theories, and they're really, really, really good theories. And it gets down to one certain point where it's like, okay, and now we have to get in a car and go across the bridge to Treasure Island. Or, now we have to board the streetcar named Desire and go 17 miles, so on and so forth. And they're blind to that because they're putting the pieces together. We are designed for pareidolia. But to be aware and to just say, you're a serious hunter, that means I'm going to push back on you. I'm going to give you the respect of saying that there's a certain leap blindness at this particular point in your solve. This is a bigger leap than any of the other leaps, something like that. Well, I don't really care about this. There's treasure inside.
You really pushed to have the conversation about it, though.
I did. Well, I'm trying to
I mean,
contribute to the community.
I enjoyed this conversation a lot. So thank you for pushing so hard.
Yeah, and I think I'll buy the book and check it out. And
I don't know that I'll buy the book, but I'm sure somebody will post the text eventually.
We'll just post the PDF, sure.
Well, treasure hunts are changing, and that means the nature of hunting for the secret is changing, whether we like it or not. And I don't know if it's actually a good idea to think that.
I don't think it is a good idea that it should change, though. I mean, like the treasure hunts are they're a product of their own time, right? They should. The easiest and best way to solve it is within the time it was created.
I agree 100% with that.
I mean, do you not think that like the biggest downfall for the secret right now is Google?
Yes. I agree. And people that think that Byron Preiss was some kind of dimension jumping genius who was coming up with some major, I think you know who we're referring to. But I honestly believe that we have to keep the mindset that this was an entrepreneur who wanted to sell a lot of books in 1981, and he was trying to create a puzzle that could be solved, but just simple enough that people would have a sense of achievement. But obviously, it needed to be not abstract, highly educated people. It needed to be ordinary people. And I believe that he thought that there'd be one would be solved, another one, and there would be this kind of cascade of publicity. But the idea that he made things incredibly hard for no reason, or to make some grand point about his obsession with Arthur Rackham or Byzantine numismatics or something like that. I just say, step away from the rabbit hole.
I agree. Someone asked who thinks Byron jumps dimensions. We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about tribbles or the Illuminati, because those are all things that people have brought to the table with Byron.
That's true. Okay, guys, I'm out of here.
Okay.
I'll see you later, man.
I guess I thank you for coming. Really, it was a great conversation. I guess this is a good place to end. Kuni, do you have anything else?
No. I mean, I have something that I'm gonna shoot you in the chat, and we can talk about it some other time.
Okay.
But I don't think this is the right
Gotcha.
time to mention it. But
Perry, and I just cut you off, Perry, before you were saying something. What were you saying? Or did he already leave?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, he's blinking. I can see him blinking.
Who's blinking? I'm
Well,
still here.
he put something
Yeah,
in the chat, so I have to go and look at it. But I can't do that
Oh.
because when he puts something into the chat, I don't know if people can see it.
It says San Francisco solve. You have a San Francisco
Oh.
solve too, Kurt?
I do, but it'll take too long to go through that now. But
Oh.
you guys
Okay.
read it and enjoy it because you both
It's
mentioned San Fran, and I think you've both done some work around that. So
it's in a box of rice-a-roni that's duct taped to the top of the cable car.
No, man.
Okay, man.
Obviously, Byron was very obsessed with Mark Twain, and it's in Mark Twain's old apartment in the nightstand.
There we go.
Exactly.
Okay, guys. Talk to you later.
Yep. Thank you for coming on. I am going to mention just at the end for everybody out there, there was a post made by Bradley. He used to be on the podcast. Everyone probably knows Bradley. He lives just outside of Asheville, North Carolina, and his area was hit super hard. He is safe. His pets are safe. His home is safe. They don't have any running water. I'm not sure if they have electricity. But he has asked if anybody can help. He gave a bunch of like donation links. He apparently, I guess they're not getting running water back for a really, really long time. And he has a well on his property. He has to buy a pump for it and has to have that pump installed. And he just doesn't have the cash. Bradley has never asked for anything of anybody that I know of. So I wanted to make it a point to say, if you can help Bradley, please do. I'm going to post his donation things in the comments. I just fucked that one up. Just in case, if anybody can help, please do help Bradley. And that is all I have. Kuni,
All right.
else?
Well, thanks, George. It's been a pleasure,
dude. It was a great conversation. Thank you.
I hope to talk to you again. So
yeah. I hope this really kicks off a conversation for you about Central Park. Now, I mean, I know there's going to be a lot of hunters who are just going to dismiss it because of that email, but the ones who are open to it, like people come up with these ideas that go against the grain, and then they're hesitant to post them because no one, like they don't think anybody's going to interact with them about it. But hopefully this will cause the other people, because like I said, there's a lot of people looking at Central Park. Hopefully this will cause them to come together with you. I'm
happy to chat with anybody about this. So please feel free to follow up with me.
All right. You guys have a good night. Kuni, stay on for just a second.
Okay.
I'm going to end the streams now. One more second, sorry. Oh, my live video ended there.